We start in the UK, where both Theresa May's Conservative Party and the Labour opposition have been punished by voters in yesterday's local elections. Analysts say the government's handling of Brexit played a big role in the results, even as the elections were supposed to be fought on local issues. While early results show both major parties suffered big defeats, with the main beneficiary being the Liberal Democrats. We'll be having analysis on the results in a moment, but first we're joined by our correspondent in London, Tig Enright, who's been watching the results coming in. Well, Tig, where are we with the counting right now?
Still some way to go, Tokes, with the counting, but already we are getting a picture of what or how voters are feeling or felt yesterday in this election. The Conservative Party, Theresa May's party, certainly frowning today. These elections were never likely to go terribly well for them, but of course normally when you have one main establishment party frowning, the other one should in principle be quite gleeful, but that's not the case because Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party fails to capitalise. It's riven with divisions in just the same way as Theresa May's Conservatives, and its voters did not know really which way it was going to turn on Brexit. But the biggest smiles all around are for that traditional third biggest party, the Liberal Democrats, a staunchly pro-Remain party, and they've hoovered up hundreds of seats. Not too far behind them are independent candidates who also have hoovered up hundreds of new seats. And what that really underlines is this disenchantment with the two main establishment parties, neither of which are seen to have offered any kind of significant leadership on the question of Brexit. What about that pro-Brexit vote? Because obviously part of them have deserted the Conservatives, but also the UKIP party has lost seats too. It's not quite clear where they've gone because Nigel Farage's new Brexit party was not actually in this race, although it has to be said UKIP was fielding fewer candidates too. Perhaps part of that is the fact that turnout was quite low. Only a third of the electors turned out to vote. Usually you put those people into the category of don't cares, but I think on this occasion you could also include a category of fed ups and simply not knowing who to vote for.
Tig Enright there with the latest from Westminster. Thank you. Well, to analyse the results a bit further, I'm joined now by Tom Brooks, Dean and Chair in Law and Government at Durham University in the UK. Well, thanks for joining us here on the programme. Well, local elections generally are meant to be about bins and potholes and who takes care of things like that. What's your reading of the results so far?
You're absolutely right. I mean, local elections are about local issues, and the last local elections last year, when there was still uncertainty about what kind of Brexit, if any, there would be, Labour did fairly well, and focusing on buses and housing and education and issues like that mattered on the ground. But clearly, I think right now, Brexit has become such a big thing with its being delayed and frustration all around with it happening or no referendum, or at least nothing announced yet, that people have kind of, after deserting the third parties in the last election, have now kind of gone for alternatives. And the big winners are the Liberal Democrats, but also independents. Independents won about 200 something seats. You had Liberal Democrats and independents. They had almost as many as Labour, and that shows a real frustration with the establishment.
Well, as you say, it seems as if voters really wanted to give the big parties a bloody nose in this election. So, which of the main parties should be more worried?
Well, I think that the Tories are the ones to be the most worried about this. They are the ones in government. Theresa May is the one who promised Brexit by the 29th of March and didn't happen. And she's seeing, and this vote was hitting a lot of the shires, a lot of the Tory heartland. It did not look at London, which is one of the very big vote areas that's normally Labour does particularly well on. So I think the Tories will be particularly very worried about this result looking forward, although there won't be much solace for Labour either. This was not the result Labour will have wanted. They would not have expected to be sweeping up the board, but they should not have been losing seats like this, and that will be concerning to many.